Pascal.
Rick, Kentucky started 5 of 7 from the three-point line, and South Carolina was 7 of 9. What is it about other teams hitting threes against you guys lately?
Well, I think you give them credit for it. Obviously, I mean, I think in both of those games, I think it was what got South Carolina, playing well, which I think most teams, when they start making some of those threes, it gives them some confidence. And I don't think there's any question that span of the game was where you really break it down. That was a big part of the game because they made some threes, and some of them were tougher than others, but they made them. And on the other end, at that point in time, we couldn't really buy one. But I don't know if it's anything to do other than we did have, I think I said the other night, some breakdowns from our scouting report where I don't think we got back the way we wanted to in terms of getting our feet set, ready to play a defender coming at you one-on-one with the ability to pull up or step back and coming off some screens. So, again, they still made the shot. Regardless of what we did or didn't do, they still made the shot.
Rick, as far as us getting close to March here, there's a lot on the table as far as trying to get that double bye in the SEC tournament, trying to stay as a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. How much do you think about that stuff? And then compare it to this year. Are you more just like, man, I just want to play games given the COVID situation?
Well, I think you're always – I mean, the bottom line is you're wanting to win games. I don't care what you think you're playing for, and all that stuff's out there. You know it. But the bottom line is you want to play good basketball. You want to win games, and you believe that if you can get to where you're playing your best basketball this time of year, regardless. But you do want to play games. I will tell you that this time of year you want to play games. But do you want easier routes through certain things, tournaments? Absolutely. I mean, anybody would want that. But through the years, not all that's proven to be the same. Sometimes teams that get started early are able to keep playing and get in a better rhythm. And all I can say this year, I think this is the year for all of us where I don't know if any of us could use the word rhythm because there's been no rhythm. And but the fact is, where we are with this year, it goes back. We just got to play good, consistent basketball, and we haven't done that. And I can tell you this. Our guys want to. I mean, I know how badly John Fulkerson wants to play well. I know how bad Jaden, Keon, all of them want to. And sometimes they can't I can't put a finger on it. They can't put a finger on it because some guys are still learning. There's no question about that. And as a team, the mental side of this game is not talked about probably near enough in terms of what players go through, what the ups and downs that they have to deal with. And you try all different kind of things to try to get them out of it. But all the things you ask about, do you talk about it at some point in time? Yeah, you can use that as a motivational piece. It's what we need to do. But the bottom line is we've coached teams that weren't playing very well at the end of the year and went on and win a tournament. And teams that were playing really well get knocked out in the first round. So the year that we went to the Final Four, we got, I think, beaten the first round or second round by Texas Tech. And I remember Coach Knight shake them hands, say, hey, this is good for you. Go and, now go win you a national championship. And at the time when you lose games, you don't ever feel like it's good for you, but it is what it is.
Nicholas Hill, Rob Lewis, and Jimmy Himes.
Coach, obviously as we're heading down here in the last stretch of this season, just if you could only fix one thing to fix on your team between now and the time SEC and the NCAA tournaments roll around, what do you think is the most pressing thing you guys have to focus on in practice in order to achieve your goals next month?
We need to get consistent scoring from inside. We need John Fulkerson, Eve Pons to really give us, because there's going to be nights when you can't make threes. And we've tried to, we've worked through posting our guards up too, because you've got to have a presence in there some way, somehow. And it would help us a lot if those guys could give us what we expect that we know they're capable of giving us. If we could count on that, because we can still post our guards at times, but we still need some more from our front line. And even I would say this: if Josiah comes back, he gives us some more on the front line when we go to the small lineup, more offense than we've been generating consistently all year.
Vanderbilt seems like they're playing a lot better the last 3 games. I mean, they lost 2 in a row, but they really threw a scare into Alabama on the road. Had Kentucky, right there with Kentucky, lost by 4 and beat Mississippi State. What are they doing different than they were the first time you played them?
Well, they've certainly gotten better in a lot of different areas. I think they've got different players. Obviously Pippin's played well. DeSuze has played some terrific games, and I think is really an underrated player. But they have the ability to shoot the ball. They run a lot of different offensive sets at you, where you've got to be on edge there because they do shoot it well. I think they've added where they're a little bit more consistent inside with an inside game. But and they're mixing defenses. They can show a little bit more pressure if they want to, and they've gotten better. And like I think most teams do try to get better, obviously, as the year goes on. But I also think they can count on more than just one player or two players to help them.
Josiah, you expect him back, and just what is the nature of that wrist injury? Is it a sprain or is it a bruise?
Yeah, it's a sprain, but yeah, I mean he's trying. He's doing everything he can. And we keep doing what we need to do from a medical side, but he believe me, we need him. I mean his leadership is very valuable to us, and which I think was evident Saturday that we missed that, but. With that said, I mean, he's doing all he can, and it's just a day-to-day deal, and we'll see, what happens between now and whenever he can get back, because he's trying.
Rick, has he been able to do anything in practice much?
Him?
Yeah, Josiah.
No,
Has he been able to do much in practice?
No, he tried and couldn't, and he would try before the game. The other night, just go through warm-ups to see if he just didn't feel like he could be a factor with it.
Okay. And how much is Yves Pons limited by his knee situation?
I think it's a problem, but he would never say it. I mean, he's just not one of those guys. He's not going to say it. He's going to really try to go out and battle and do it. I mean, that's Yves, but I think he's, again, the reps in practice. He doesn't get. We got to really manage his load right now, and I think that hurts him because he's a guy that he's wanting to take every rep if you can. I think he feels better when he can do that, but we just can't do it with him.
Mike Wilson, Joe Rexrode, and Gustavo.
Yeah, Rick, I want to ask about Yves too. He was kind of on a good little tear there for a bit before he got hurt. Has he been more hesitant offensively to you since he came back from that injury?
I think he has been a little bit. We need, again, like what I was saying earlier, we need he and Fulke to get aggressive. We need those guys. We ask them, we do. We ask them to do it, and Fulke did it during the South Carolina game, reverted back what he had been pretty much most of the year. And Yves, again, they've got to get more involved. And with the way our offense is set up, it's up to them to do it, and we can run some sets for them. But when we do that, sometimes it puts them in a disadvantaged situation because people are loading up on them as opposed to where they can catch it in the flow and do the things that we'd like to see them do. But yeah, both of those guys need to get a little bit more hungry, wanting to go score the basketball.
Yeah, Rick, following up on that, on Fulkerson, is there any sort of physical ailment at all, or lingering effect or anything like that he's dealing with, or is this all mental?
Joe, I wish I knew that answer. I do. We spend a lot of time with Fulke, all of us, in some way, how, and trying to get him to do this or do that. And like I said earlier, believe me, he wants to do it. I mean, it's not like, we look at players and we have expectations. Obviously, he does too. And I don't think there's any question he's probably hurting more than anybody can imagine. Because I know it means a lot to him. I know it means a lot to his teammates, and he's struggling. That's all, and it's tough to watch because of the fact that he's been such a big part of what we've done here. And when you have a player that has been a big part of it, and I don't think he's got any answers. I don't think we've tried to come up with and try to create answers even when we don't have it. Just trying to get to the dig deep and try to get to the core part of it. But the fact is, I've been doing this long enough to know that I've watched a lot of great basketball players go through it. And it's not fun. And I'm sure it's equally not fun for him when knowing that your teammates are counting on you and you just can't seem to get it going the way you want it to for him. But again, to answer your question, I think if any of us knew that answer, we would fix it because of the feelings that we have towards him and what we feel that he deserves.
Coach, is there any updates on the Florida game is going to be rescheduled, or Kentucky was the last home game?
We don't know yet. We won't know, do we, Tom?
We do not. We don't have an update there. We expect that we'll host one more home game, but we've yet to get a real, any clarity from the league on that. We'll go to Wes, Mike Wilson, and Jimmy Himes.
Rick, you were talking about Fulke a minute ago, and there were a couple moments again in that game where he had a chance one-on-one to kind of go in there and make a play, and he kicks it out for a shot. When you bring that up to him, what does he say? Just like, I didn't think the shot was there, or I wanted a better shot, or how do those conversations go?
Pretty much you answered it. Both of those answers would be an answer that he might give, but trying to say to him, a year ago that wasn't the case, and some of those you need to shoot because it's going to get us on the foul line. It's important that your post players, even if they're not making shots, you obviously want them to make shots, but on those dump off passes, you've got to try to, we got to get some fouls in there, whether you make that basket or not. But I think he's missed a couple of those, and I do think it's mental. I do. But those two answers you gave would probably be the two answers that he would say. He didn't think he was ready, or he thought he saw somebody that had a better shot. But, and again, post players are going to have to take some of those contested shots, especially when you're not shooting the ball well, because you're as much as anything, you're still trying to get to the free throw line when you just feel like you can't make a shot. And we had that feeling Saturday, and when we got it in there a couple times and shots that you would think that we could make, and none of it's guaranteed. But again, I think it's just a mental battle that he's going through right now.
Rick,
Go ahead, Mike.
Rick, both Kentucky and LSU, and I think a couple teams before that, have had some success beating you guys with baseline inbounds plays. Why are teams able to do that recently against you guys? Is it just a lapse of scouting report, attention? Why does that happen?
Well, you just answered the question right there. Both of those, lapse of attention, details. Like Kentucky got a dunk Saturday, and we were yelling it from the bench. We knew exactly what they were doing, and it goes back to, I think, when you're not playing well, I think your head's somewhere else. I think that if you made a bad play, you don't let it go. You don't stay in the present moment. You're going to give up those baskets. I could go back to every one of those, and the guys off the top of the bat that have been beat on backdoor plays, simple backdoor plays where they were just reads, not anything to do with the play. I know that BJ got beat on, Josiah got beat on one, Keon's got beat on one, and Jaden. Both of those guys, all four of those guys, if you go back and watch it, at that point in time, they weren't playing great, and they weren't locked in, playing as if every possession mattered, and they got burned.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Rick, in the first half, Kentucky shot over 60%. In the second half, they shot around 20%. Was your defense that much better in the second half?
Well, they made some shots, and I'm not telling you again. When you're making shots, Jimmy, it makes this game look so much better. Sometimes you don't even play well, but you make shots. It looks good. You're not really. You're just making shots, and they made. They had. Certainly players that we knew that could shoot the three, and our scouting report was to guard them. But they made a couple tough shots off one-on-one isolation plays, and. When we've done that some too, when we're playing well, we're making, you think about some of the tough shots that Keon and Jaden make. Nothing looks good when you're not making shots, even when you execute. None of it looks good. And when you're making shots, it's good. And when they're making shots like they did in the first half, it didn't allow us to get out and go at all in transition. So we were, because of that, we were getting deeper in the clock because it goes back. We either took a couple of shots that we should have kicked out for a better shot. And it got to, I felt like when we were down again, we reverted back where a couple guys were on their heels and not demanding the ball. Then it forces a couple guys who's willing to go try to make something happen, take difficult shots because their mindset is, okay, you run a play, this guy's not really demanding the ball the way he should. And now the clock gets down, and we got three guys for certain, four that if they have to, they'll go force the issue. And and it ends up being a tough shot. And when you've already made up your mind, predetermine what you're going to do when you get the ball, you're not going to see the floor. You're not going to see it. Like I could show the guys today a couple times where they made the right play, but they'd already made up their mind they were going to shoot it, and they could have kicked out for a better shot. But the way we were shooting threes at that point in time, maybe they felt like they were needed to go force the issue. So the mental side is so much more important than I think sometimes people recognize in the flow of the game what's going on. And I do think mentally the other day, because we didn't see the ball go in as early, we saw some shots around the rim in and out, it got to us, and we weren't who we should have been.
And when you're having trouble,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jimmy.
when you're having trouble scoring, are you tempted to call a timeout to try to run it through a player that you think can score? What are your options when you're having trouble?
I don't have to call a timeout. We got calls. Like I mean, I could call a timeout and say, okay, we're coming out of the timeout. Like the other day when they were up big, I felt like if I called a timeout, I wanted to get the tempo going, and I also felt like if I called a timeout, we would tighten up even more. And and we actually played through it. And we got some stops, went down and cut it back some. So it's all the feel you have with your team. But we don't need to call a timeout to set up a play. I mean, we can stop it right in the middle, and like if we get a rebound going the other way, obviously I can tell the point guard right there, do this. So that part, we don't need to call a timeout to set up a play. We can do that. Where and like I said the other night, just trying to get them relaxed and try to get them in a rhythm was one reason I didn't call timeout early, because I just felt like if we could go and I felt like we were tightening up some because of the shots we were missing and the fact that they were making some shots. And we just, I could just tell we were anxious, where I felt like a timeout would probably make us more anxious. And again, we settled down and played through it, but we actually got some good looks and couldn't convert them.
Ben McKee.
Coach, sounds like you just answered my question, but Keon was 4 for 14, and Santiago and Jaden only had 4 points apiece. Just when you went back and watched, what led to their struggles?
Well, you go back to the first game, two guys, Keon and Jaden scored 50. They're not going to let that happen again. And so they adjusted their game plan to them and did exactly what we told them was going to happen. Kentucky didn't do one thing Saturday that we didn't tell them they weren't going to do. We knew they would do that. I mean, you're not going to come into a game after losing where two guys get 50 and say, okay, we're going to let them do it again. We're going to make some other people see if they'll pass the ball, see if they'll do this or do that. I thought they got a little frustrated a little bit, and they get attacked. And I thought Jaden over-penetrated, got down too deep, and then he tried to shuffle off some passes and put some guys into some tough situations. And Keon in isolation one time, just when you're isolated, you can't get the ball taken from you. I mean, he had his back to his defender. They were digging down, and he let his defender knock the ball away from him. You can't lose the ball in those isolation situations. And then Keon went through a stretch where I think he took 3 straight shots where he was trying to – I know what he's trying to help his team win, but he was just trying too hard, basically. And I felt like he – as much as I can talk to you about we have a feel for our players, players have a feel for their teammates probably more so. And the look in your eye that, hey, this guy's really not ready. And you got to have some of those alpha dogs that, hey, hey, I'm not afraid to go do this. I'm going to do it. And sometimes they pick the wrong time and the wrong shot. And it's not out of being selfish. It's just out of being competitive and still learning the game.
Wes Rucker.
Rick, you've talked a lot, obviously the past few weeks about some of, the mental struggles that come with basketball sometimes when things aren't happening the way you want them to. When you're watching a team go through that late in the season, I mean, do you have to push them harder? Do you have to love up on them a little bit? Like, is every guy a little bit different? How do you go about that as a coach about trying to get it fixed late in the season?
Again, you just answered all 3 of your answers right there. I think it depends on the individual. The one thing you don't want to do is tighten them up. You try to, through the process of being with them all the time, you like to think of what you can do to shake certain guys up. I mean, some guys respond to hard coaching, some guys not so much. some guys somewhere there in between. So through what we do in practice and knowing our players, that's when you see them struggle like that, that's what you've got to do to try to get that individual player going. But then when you see your team as a whole doing that, that's where it gets difficult, where you again, see guys pressing too much, trying to do things as opposed to just trying to stay into their role, play the role they need to play. But when guys that you're counting on aren't delivering the way you need them to deliver, it's obviously going to put some pressure in other areas where other guys say, okay, well, we got to do it. And most of the time that ends up back on the guards because they've got the ball in their hands and when they are trying to make plays. But you answered the question really, truly by everybody's different and you've got to know how to push each guy's button individually. And sometimes you push it right, sometimes you don't.
We'll finish up with Gustavo.
Coach, as probably one home game remaining, how do you evaluate this team's performance at home, only losing 3 games out of 15 games played? How do you evaluate the team's performance at home?
The team's only lost 3 home games. How would you evaluate how we've played specifically at home?
I don't know this year, honestly, if home games have been an advantage for anybody, really. I don't. I feel like everywhere we go is pretty much equal, the same, thereabout. But we've had our moments at home. I didn't think we were very good this past Saturday for whatever reason. I think, we know what the Kentucky rivalry means to both universities, and we came out. And I don't like to use the term flat because when I watched our team play, I don't think they weren't ready to play Saturday. I think that they had all intentions of wanting to play well, but when they didn't make shots the way they needed to, I could tell they were anxious because one time there was a rebound where we wanted to get out and run, and all 3 guys that could have got the rebound looked like they were heading the other way, thinking the other guy was going to get the rebound. And that's when you know your guys are anxious. That's when you know when they're not taking care of just finishing the possession or just assuming somebody's going to get the rebound. But at home, again, I think here we've tried and done as good a job as anybody trying to create a nice situation for the players. But I'm not sure I think you look around the country, teams that have had these great home court advantages through the years, and we're one of them. We're one of them. It's not what it has been in the past.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.